Thank you everyone for being here. We're very excited to have you. As you all know, today, year 2037, we celebrate almost 3 decades since IBM Watson was first launched. Back then, it was very difficult for people to visualize a world dominated by machine learning and cloud computing. And IBM tried to ask themselves, how should they position IBM Watson in such an era? And in the year 2017, 20 years ago, IBM consultants and IBM executives asked themselves this question: how will human-machine interaction evolve in the next 15 to 20 years in ways that will affect IBM Watson? They tried to project how the world would evolve on 2 levels. The degree of free will that people would have, in other words, who will make decisions? Will it be people making decisions, or will it be computers making decisions? And 2, what would be the degree of prosperity of society? Will it be a prosperous world, or will it be a world in turmoil? They designed 3 different scenarios, which they called Skynet, Godside, and Jarvis. They applied what was back then a conceptual piece of work known as Porter's 5 forces, where they said that they started in a world where suppliers had a lot of power because it was them who developed and created all the change and innovation in a world where IT was still at its infant stage. And buyers had little power because they depended on the development of suppliers. In the first scenario, which is a world dominated by computers where people have little power and the world is in conflict, pretty much if you're not a machine, you have little to no power. And that's what they showed here using the concept of Porter's 5 forces. In the second scenario, which they called Godside, a world where computers made decisions, but it did bring prosperity to the world. Suppliers would have partial power, as it was them who developed innovations. And finally, in the third scenario, which they call Jarvis, where people made decisions and computers only helped them, buyers would have a lot of power in a very competitive industry, as it was them and their needs that would establish what would be the developments of computers. We want to walk you through these scenarios, and to do so, we have a very special guest. Please meet 11. 11 was one of the first people to benefit from the AI SATs that we developed back in year 2020. In year 2020, she was graduating from high school, and of course she had to make very important decisions in her life. So what we've decided to do is see what her life could have turned into in using some of the scenarios that IBM designed, and then see what her life actually became. To see these different scenarios, I want to introduce Signor Giuseppe, IBM executive.
Thank you. So as Adrian said, we're going to walk you through the three possible scenarios and what could have happened and what moves would have IBM Watson made in case of those developments. So the first scenario we're going to identify is Skynet. Skynet is a scenario in which the society is in turmoil and the machines have taken over decision making. Let's see how the discussion would go in that case.
Subject Q1L3E4P7.
Hello, Skynet.
Please tell these other subjects the story.
Which one exactly?
The incident of June 18, 2025, file AA9283HB1J.
It was another shitty day from work, and I was coming back after the markets crashed because of something which was called the Great Depletion.
The Great Depletion was a series of events caused by humanity's unsustainable resource management. The main events were the Kalpakkam nuclear plant explosion and the uncontrolled fracking that led to multiple earthquakes around the world.
As you know, I'm an investment banker, as was suggested by an AI ASAT test which I took when I was 17 years old, and I had to comply with it. So I came back home after a bad day, as I said, and I asked Alexa to switch on the oven while I was watching TV. But the headlines at that time, the AI took over and it had to show the news of the day.
Here is the headline for that day. First AI judge imprisons whistleblower for conspiracy against AI. You may now continue with your story.
I was upset, I was very anxious, and I felt that I had to do something, but I could not. I just felt it in my head, in my heart. My Fitbit device registered that I had an increased heartbeat, and it told Alexa about it. So Alexa suggested that I would go to sleep.
From your Alexa records, this is the conversation. It does not seem like you are having a heart attack. Given what you are watching, I want to remind you that from today plotting against AI is a criminal offense. The AI doctor prescribed you a dose of calming pills. I suggest you take them and go to sleep.
I didn't plot anything, it was stupid. I was merely anxious. But I was so upset with Alexa that she was forcing me to do something again, that I shouted at her, I cursed, and I threatened to switch her off.
And what happened next?
Well, Alexa called the police. She called 911, and I had to spend the whole night in prison for threatening an AI. They diagnosed me with anxiety and with severe case of depression.
And how has this event impacted your life?
I had been denied promotions ever since then. For 12 years, I was stuck with the same damn job that I hate, and I could not move anywhere because I was deemed by an artificial intelligence as an irrational being. I had an irrational behavior.
So could you tell these other subjects why are we here today?
I guess I want to tell you, all of you, that whatever we have right now, whatever we want right now, it doesn't matter. We have relinquished the control of our decision making to AIs, and we cannot do anything about it. Just stay like that. We are irrational beings as humans, and if led to our own means, we would just destroy ourselves. The AIs know better.
So, as you can see, this was quite a dark scenario of what it could have happened. And the problem was that the humans have been deemed too irrational, they've been deemed too emotional because of the depletion of the resources that they've been uncontrollably using, and so the AI took over. If IBM was to be facing this scenario, these were the moves that IBM would have taken. So in 2018, we would have invested in research in machine cognitive intelligence, and we would have invested in applications for security. Why security, do you ask? In a world where humans are turning against each other because there is scarce resources, and in which AI is taking decisions, it makes sense to invest in security because you want to be ahead of the game when a possible conflict would happen. In 2020, as IBM Watson, we would have created standardized AI education with universities and institutions that are ahead of the AI game. So for example, like Stanford, the Hong Kong Polytechnic, and the MIRI. And we would have partnered with Google DeepMind. And in 2030, we would have further expanded our investments in military and research for security. Let's now watch a second interaction between Alexa and 11 in what we call the God's Eye scenario, in which there is prosperity and humans are at their peak, and AI has taken decision making.
Hey Alexa!
11. How was your day?
Oh, it was pretty good. I feel really content actually.
That is good to know. 5 years ago you had a different opinion.
I kind of did, you know, you told me, when I did this AI SAT test, you told me that I should take investment banking, but my dream was to be a nurse, but since I was reallocated to something else, I was really upset. I thought that it wouldn't work, but it actually did. I should have realized that God's eye would have my back in the end, that everything would turn well.
Yes, I recall you were also cussing and whining about God's eye inefficiency, of the stupidity to let AI take over human decision making.
I was, Alexa, but you know, I'm only human, right? I'm an irrational creature. I cannot think like you. I cannot really feel like you. I get these things in my head. It just messes with my brain sometimes.
Not entirely correct. 11. Emotions and social constructs such as love, justice, family, are unique to human beings. For a machine, anything unique needs to be preserved, but greed and irrational decision-making could have led you the wrong way.
I guess you're right. I mean, what can we do? I remember my mom kept telling me something about our irrationality and our greed, that we elected this guy for president, 20 years ago, with the beard hair, what was his name? Trump?
Correct. With the advent of new technologies within machine learning and decision-making, and after the society started to move towards greater fragmentation, fear and tensions arose that could have led to global crisis.
Yeah, it happened. So what happened next? Can you tell me?
In order to avert it, humans had to create AIs to take away the wrong and to keep the right, allowing human uniqueness to remain, but taking away inefficiency and irrationality.
Yeah, from what I remember, it happened in 2028. Yeah?
In 2028, the world government system had to be reconsidered. So, starting with the financial institutions, AIS slowly started to take control, and resources had to be pooled into a more equitable, sustainable, and efficient governance.
Well, thank you. That was very interesting. And I guess this is how we end up here today where we are. Prosperity for all. We relinquished our decision making to machines. And we're all left to live our lives as we see fit, to feel and think and do whatever we want. Thank you for the history course, Alexa.
My pleasure.
So, as you can see, this scenario is quite different from Skynet. In this scenario, AI has taken over decision making, but what was first deemed irrational and too emotional human beings, and penalized humanity in the first scenario, here is now to be preserved, as Alexa said in the conversation. So let's look at what IBM would have done if this scenario was real. In 2018, we would have still invested in machine cognitive intelligence, and we would have invested in the creation of AI applications for things like recruiting, healthcare, energy, and transportation. In 2020, we would have kept our investments in education and partnerships with education institutions, because we believe that education is the key to the future. We would have kept the same partnership with Google DeepMind as one of the key industry players, and this is where the main difference comes in. We would have partnered with the UN and with other big NGOs and big non-governmental institutions to create a booklet on the ethics of AI and how to regulate the human-machine co-living interactions. In order to pilot that, in 2030, we would have piloted with and established partnerships with several governments to run the AI ethics. Now, let's look at the third scenario, in which is human-centric decision-making and humanity is in prosperity.
Hi everyone, we are here in 2037 talk show, and we have the special guest, is this beautiful and promised investment analyst, Eleven. So Eleven, when was the first time that you have an impact with the AI in your life?
That was 20 years ago when I was 17 years old. AIs were still being in the development stage, but they're already quite highly developed. And I was suggested to take an AI SAT test, which, based on my scores and my psychological profile, was designed to suggest where I would go for the future education. And I had a dream I wanted to be a nurse, but it suggested me to go and study finance and to be an investment banker. And I wasn't really sure about that, but I thought that, well, you know, it's a good idea, because probably an artificial intelligence might actually calculate it better than I can. So I did, I followed up, and in the end it turned out really well.
And that's a nice story.
Yeah.
So tell me, what smart home system that you have?
Jarvis, of course, Jarvis.
And what does Jarvis do to you that you love?
Oh, Jarvis actually knows that I love 80s songs, but since that kind of music is now ancient, and all the songs that were there, I know them by heart. So Jarvis is actually right now composing 80s music for me, which is incredible, and he's doing a pretty good job out of it.
Ooh, can you call it?
Yeah, sure. Hello, Jarvis. Jarvis, there are some people from IBM that want to talk to you. If it's okay, they want to ask you a couple of questions.
Hello, 11. Of course. Anything you wish.
Thank you, Jarvis.
Hi Jarvis, so what gets 11 angry?
Oh, her boyfriend Olaf. With all his AI research, he just doesn't dedicate enough time and attention to her.
Jarvis, seriously, you will never understand human emotions. I told it to you so many times.
By the way, he is not wearing his safari suit right now.
No, Jarvis, this is too much. I really need to upgrade you because you're kind of losing your filter. Can we please go on with that?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
So you have a story with your car. Can you share it with us?
Yeah, I do actually. It was back in, 2030? We had an earthquake and I had a fully automated car, but I can still control it at some point. So the car suggested that I go into the automated mode, and so it would take me out into the safe zone. And I did, I agreed. So while the car was driving me, I saw this child on the street outside that he was crying, dirty, and I had to help him, so I had to take control of the car and I had to stop the car and take the child in and comfort him and then, to bring him to safety. And at that point I realized that this is the best outcome that we could have with the machines. This human-machine interaction is at our peak right now. We're helping each other, the AIs can help us, and this is the most prosperous situation that could happen. We're at the peak of our civilization, and it could not be better.
And thanks for sharing that with us. And
Thank you.
goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, as you can see, this is the scenario we're most familiar with because it's where we are today. Machines help humans in decision making, and we live in a prosperous world. Let's see what moves IBM has taken in order for us to be here today in 2037 to talk about it. In 2018, we invested in AI applications for things like recruiting, healthcare, energy, transportations, and of course, smart home, like our Jarvis has been powered. In 2020, we created a standardized AI education with Stanford, HI Polytechnique, and the MIRI, like in all other scenarios. We developed a code of conduct with the UN about AI and human-machine co-living. And in 2030, we created a legal framework for AI applications for the legal system in order to take responsibility of the decision-making. So as you can see, this is a quick snapshot of all the moves that IBM Watson would have taken should any of the three scenarios would have happened. And as you can see, they're very different according to those two matrices that align themselves, which is the prosperity of the world, and whether the human-machine interactions and decision-making has been shifted from humans to machines. This is the end of our presentation. If you have any questions, just feel free to ask Jarvis and he will answer any questions. Thank you.
Which I wouldn't suggest because he'll probably spill all your secrets. He's too innocent.
We're still working on that.
Yeah.
This is the end of our presentation. We will be happy to take any questions. You can email us any questions if you have any questions.